still being hunted, he was already involved in some of these issues from being an executive director of Pan-African Agribusiness Apex Chamber, which is under the African Union. But he also brings some of experiences during this period, serving both in public and private sector. He held positions and roles in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He's been with the Department of, or the Federal Home Loan Bank, again in New York, and also Alliance Capital and JP Morgan Chase. So the role of in private sector, role of investment, as well as some of the dreams that we had about, we look forward to hear some of those insights. And that is the panel, but I would also like to invite Andrew to come on stage as well, not for that process we work through, but as a lead in ISA and the role of coordinating PPVC. That also means that Brian Mulenga, you are welcome to join us on stage, basically to take us through some of the experiences and observations, the journey that in the PPVC process we've gone through. You can. It is not necessary for me to be standing anymore, so they want to take away my podium. Please don't look at my shoes. Is Mr. Sihlobo online? Can we confirm that, or otherwise then we can just quickly move on? So I'm going to pose questions, brief questions to you as my panelists, and then we can engage further. But if you see me receiving a note, they are telling me about time. That's really not good. No, I'm joking. Apparently, Mr. Sihlobo is not online. So, but we have enough people to really to take on these issues. So I'll immediately come to you, Mr. Succeed Mubanga. We have heard from the presentations, obviously from Brian Chisanga as well as Fuasa. What is the way forward? What is the outlook and the hope for Zambian beef as well as soya bean? But from your role as well as involvement with the planning and information, can you share with us a little bit about how can government engage this information generated from the PPVC or the evidence that comes along with the analytics? Is it something that the Zambian government can take on board, can use it, or can improve on it for PPVC to have some impact in Zambia?
Just speak a little louder. I was not very clear with the question. Just speak a little bit louder. It wasn't very clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but you're still quite low.
How about
Are
now?
you able to hear me? Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, I'm almost swallowing my mic, but for you, that's okay. So my question was just...
Thank you.
How does government of Zambia, from the involvement in some of the research and with the research team on PPVC, can use or see it using the data collected, the evidence used in order to convert these analytics into action and impact for Zambian people and stakeholders involved in the two value chains which were presented?
Okay, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're able to see me. The video, I'm having some technical issues. But in terms of the PPVC and how government can use that, I think we, like the presenters did mention, we have been interacting in the development of these analytics. And we also take cognizance of the key recommendations that come out of this. So what is important is firstly to note that in terms of evidence-based planning, Zambia has been kind of doing this in the past in terms of trying to map your budgeting, your policies, and also your implementation. If you look at the 8th NDP, that's the 8th National Development Plan. But we've moved a little bit further now to look at the value chains under the CATSIP, and that's where most of this study has come in. So what are we doing as government? We are actually leveraging on some of the findings of these analytics. I'll give you an example of the issues around standards that have come out of this study. We are in the process of developing the livestock development, which is the first of its kind in the country. And this has actually been one very key input into this legislative framework to be able to say we need to put in place standards for carcasses that will help with the dream of the export of beef, as just an example. So what we're doing is basically trying to get the recommendations that will give us the most impact, but also not just about impact. We have to look at sustainability issues and also in terms of equity. So those are the three key issues from the policy perspective that we focus on. And when we get this information, we have to sieve it along those three key areas. And then, of course, then it informs what we're going to do. And like the example I've just given, we are now having to adjust our legislative framework in terms of the livestock development to be able to incorporate the issues of beef standards, which have been absent in the sector, but are very, very critical to the export market, but also even to the domestic market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that sharing that those experiences and how you see it fitting in. I would now move on, check with Mr. Ajiamang, taking it off from the point where Mr. Mubanga did mention how Zambia would take up and use the experiences, lessons, and the outcomes of these processes. Is that the feeling, or is that something that Ghana government sees that way, given where you are? But also, to what extent would this really improve or lead towards policy implementation, buy-in of private sector and society at large? Is PPVC something that features strongly within government policy?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Facilitator. I'm very grateful for this privilege, and a very good morning to the panel and participants as well. Going back to your question, I think government buy-in is very, very essential in implementing findings or the analytical results from PPVC. And why do I say this? Because government is actually a central policy maker. And in making these policies, he also do implement the policies that has been developed. ISE, together with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, has had a very healthy relationship, especially in implementing PPVC. Because from the day one, there has been a lot of stakeholder consultation with MUFA, that is the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Again, they helped us to prioritize some commodities using the business case and the developmental case analysis from the results that they had. And together with that, it has helped us to also align this research or the findings from ISE coupled with the government priorities. Initially, government was focusing on looking at export, looking at commodities that will help in developing or getting us to a full self-sufficiency level, looking at food security level. But with these findings from PPVC, it helps us align some commodities that they help us identify, which are the tomato, the rice, and poultry for the first analysis stage. And that is why ANAPRI program. So when government buy-in comes into play in using the PPVC analysis and resources, it helps align this research to our policy priorities. Because when these evidence are produced, it responds to our policy needs, and it also makes it easy for government to implement. In addition to that, I also say that when government is involved, and as PPVC and ISE has done, it also legitimizes the evidence that are produced, because when these evidence are produced and stakeholders are met, presentations are made to them, and it also gives government, it helps government to endorse these evidences as credible and be able to use it across its institutions. And this also helps facilitate the interagency cooperation that is between academia, between research, and between the bureaucratic system, that is the MMDs, the municipal districts, and municipal agencies and district assemblies. So it also increases political traction. And I'm saying this because political leaders are more likely to support reforms they have endorsed. If they have not endorsed such a reform, it makes it very difficult for these reforms to be implemented. We have had situations where there were evidences, I will not want to mention name of the organizations, and the results were just dumped on the ministry. And as such, as we speak now, the results are just lying on the shelves, not being implemented. So when policymakers are involved in some of these analyses, they are more likely to understand these resources and use them. And they are also more likely to trust these resources, and they also feel ownership of these resources and be able to implement the recommendations. Talking about implementation of recommendations, it comes with resource allocation. And because of that, it will help government to also prioritize the resources to these commodity or these value chains. When ISE came up with the 3 commodities for the first deep dive, that is tomato, the rice, and poultry, government attention was shifted that indeed there is the need to commit a lot of resources to these value chains in terms of developing and meeting our export needs in line with the objectives of the Feed Ghana program that the government is implementing. So it's very, very important whenever these resources are shared with government, whenever government comes in and also take part in the analysis. And taking part, let me quickly mention ISE's involvement too with the ministry staff. I have 2 of my colleagues, I myself also as a focal person, we have had the opportunity to go through with ISE step by step the analytical process using the models. And it has given the participants or the colleagues also a fair idea as to why and the need to implement these resources as and when government take it up in the Feed Ghana program. So let me rest it here, and if there's any further questions, I think I can attend to it. So in a nutshell, government buy-in is very important because it helps government in trusting the results and also implementing the results that has come out of the PPVC value chain analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I almost stopped you because I thought you were going to mention the name of the organization. But also, I had a sense that you are making this room very jealous the way you talk about the uptake of the work, because it's every researcher's dream to see their work, their recommendations be considered by government. but you have also helped with providing some advice on how research that intends to have influence and impact on policy should be done, should engage different stakeholders, most importantly government. So thanks very much for those inputs. And I'll come now in-house. Ms. Caroline, you heard Mr. Ajiamang talking about the policy recommendation coming, being accompanied by the resource allocations. As you were coming up, I was also making a joke about the $160 million that FWASA wants for the infrastructure for the livestock. As someone who is responsible for budgeting, but also being part or being involved with the PPVC processes, in your view, how do these analytics get translated into policy choices, those kind of priorities within the budget lines, but also the delivery mechanisms? Because they made, I would argue, very good points around the benefits and what Zambia can get out of the implementation. However, at the same time, there are costs, there are budgetary considerations to come into play. How do you see that space?
Thank you very much for the question. I think from my perspective is that the real value we get from the PPVC analysis is its ability to turn complex value chain data into practical and actionable insights that policymakers can actually use. The data we get or the interventions we get from the PPVC will show us exactly where the intervention should be and what the impact should be. And talking about that, I want to give an example from the beef sector. From the analysis given, we are told that 80% of the cattle population herd in Zambia is in the hands of smallholder farmers. But there's low productivity because of poor health management, low carcass weight, inadequate infrastructure, and biosecurity issues. And so once we've identified these interventions, we need to link these interventions to budget lines. And how do we do that? As we do our budgets, we need to make sure that we provide funds for biosecurity infrastructure, we provide funds for disease control, we provide funds for food and nutrition, that is pasture, rangelands, and feedlots. In that, we'll be able to accomplish some of these interventions that are being given forward. And I must recommend ANAPRI because by the time this report is coming out, our strategic plan and the National Development Plan are expiring next year. So it gives us an opportunity to include some of these interventions in those two national policy documents, which are very important if we are going to achieve the export ambition that we have as a country. But at the end of it all, the delivery mechanism is also important. So we have our district officers who have been devolved to the local authority. And so all the functions for the ministry at the local level have gone to the local authority. So how do they deliver those interventions on behalf of the ministry? It brings in an issue of collaboration. We need to get to the local authority and start talking. We need to be partners in this journey of us improving the national herd and us achieving the export targets that we have. So because the local authority oversees a certain fund called Constituency Development Fund, and over the years that fund has been associated with constructing of schools, constructing of hospitals or clinics, but now we need to sit around the table to say, look, we have these ambitions as a country, how do you come in as the local authority to ensure that these ambitions are achieved? From that money, they can allocate funds to deal with the livestock infrastructure that are needed, to deal with deep tanks and things like that. At the end of the day, PVC analytics alone is not enough. We need to collaborate. And I'm happy that from the time this process started, we have been engaging with ANAPRI. They didn't sit alone. They didn't sit alone to do this exercise. We went in the field together. At every stage of the analysis, they've been coming back to the ministry to give feedback, and management to engage them to say, let's go this direction, let's move to this level. At the end of the day, we have all these ambitions that we're trying to achieve as a nation put together because of the collaboration that exists. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Those are key points, and every intervention has a budget line, and therefore it involves another level. Before I go to Mr. Osei Bansu, I would like to engage these two gentlemen sitting to my right as the lead. Oh my goodness, I'm giving my back to the room this side. Apologies. These two gentlemen were the lead, say, facilitators, coordinators, researchers for the respective institutions which you've seen their presentations. But I'm giving you only 2 minutes. You've been involved enough already. Basically, just to indicate in this process what surprised you the most, positively or negatively, whichever way. What was unexpected in engaging in this process, but given that the implementation is yet to be, to get going, what is the anticipation? What surprised you? What was unexpected? And what do you look forward to? 2 minutes.
Good. 2 minutes is quite tight. Yeah. But anyway, there's only 2 issues I need to address. I think one is, what surprised me or what surprised us as a team during the process. Well, not really a surprise, but I think the warm sort of relationship that happened immediately the moment we engaged the public sector, government in this case, Caroline and the team. I think this time was quite different. We have done this a number of times, but it would be a very slow process with ups and downs. But I think this one was like a match made in heaven. I think, as Caroline said, probably we came at the right time. And that's the thing with policy work. Sometimes you just get lucky that there's a need for the work that you're doing, and when you approach the policymakers, they'll be very open to work with you. So it was a very positive surprise. Going forward, what do we expect? I think what we expect is that we'll continue on this journey with our colleagues in the government. Yes, we've given them this analytics and evidence, but now we want to move towards supporting them or facilitating the actual implementation. I think Caroline gave a very good, scenario of where we have now decentralized the functions of the government to the local authorities. So we see ourselves being part of that process. How do we get the message to the local authorities? How can they reconfigure their budgets and focus on these other drivers of economic growth rather than just the social areas which Caroline highlighted? Thanks.
So primarily, our strategy has been to ensure that the skills which sits at ISE, BFEB, and ANAPRI, or even IFPRI, is also handed over to the ministries which matter. We do have the Ministry of Agriculture on board. We have the National Development Planning Commission also on board. And then we have the Center for Scientific Research and Industrial. So these 3 institutions we've been working with. And our hope is that by the time we finish this process, the basic things that they need to do, for instance, to, let's say, look at a value chain like rubber, they should be able to do it. The objective is not to hold the knowledge, but to make it available to the policymakers so that they can also use it. One of the things we find is that people who show so much enthusiasm at the beginning may not always go with you to the end. And those who are slow to pick are rather the people who seem to stay with you for long. So as we move into the policy space, I think it's one lesson we've learned, and we hope to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm looking at the time now, but I think, Mr. Nana, we lost your partner on the private sector, so you are the only one who's going to talk about private sector investment and that kind of partnership. But as I was reading your CV, I wasn't really worried that you'll have trouble discussing those issues. But right now, I just want to maybe ask you 3 key issues that are critical for private sector participation in a project like this? As you have heard, you have seen the numbers, you have seen the ambitions and the dreams, but generally, when private sector thinks or is faced with a situation as this, what would be the key three things to look into or to share with us on that?
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For private sector, opportunity is the biggest element that we look for. And the government policies that are sometimes or mostly inconsistent make it very difficult for private sector to plan, to invest, and to be able to do what they need to do. So policy prioritization by government is critical. And we have anticipated and we have suggested, previously it was working, but periodically new governments change their tone, and we have a dialogue platform, a quarterly dialogue platform where you meet the highest levels of government with the highest levels of private sector to analyze the current situation, to analyze what is not working, to analyze and make recommendations as to how we go forward. Agriculture involves land. It's like going to swim without water. So if we need a land, what are the land tenure systems? What kind of support would the government provide for land ownership? Because these are critical game changers. If you don't have a land tenure of about 10, 15 years for a private sector investment, why would you want to invest? You're investing for 2 days or for 10 years or for 50 years. So land tenure system is critical game changer for the private sector. Now, once you've come to the land tenure, then who are the players on the ground? The smallholder farmers and others need the support that would allow them to invest, to do what is necessary and plan. Ghana, we have land ownership issues. So if we don't make possible for the locals to own the land in partnership sometimes with foreigners, and it becomes a very dicey situation where some foreigners are owning the land and the locals are sitting on the fence, it makes it very difficult. So for private sector, what we anticipate, what we want government to be doing and partner with us is, let's make the land available. And then once we do, resources. What are the resources necessary? The seeds, the financial resources. Every time we talk about financial resources, I think everybody turns around and look at development partners. Yes, they are development partners, but we are the partners that lead in the development. And if we're always looking back to others to come and rescue us, it makes it very difficult. How do we make capital mobilization locally? Pension schemes, long-term funding, those are the critical game changers. If we don't have the resources, no amount of efforts or policy will make it happen. So we look at the financials, we look at the technical expertise, we look at capacity building. The small landowner doesn't have the technical skills, but we can boost their capacity by hand-holding and linking them to various agencies that have the technical competencies to work with them. And these are some of the things that we think that the farmers are the key players. And one of the key things that we always look for, market makers. If you produce in glut and you don't have any access to the market, you're wasting resources. And then the storage facilities that had to be able to store for tomorrow. In certain areas, you have glut. Rice, as I think Prof indicated earlier, we produce a lot. In other areas, we don't. There's a mismatch in their locations and the way that it's being handled. So we think that for private sector, we always want government to be aware of the current situation, plan against tomorrow, and be able to rescue the agricultural landscape, because it's something that we have to do, because Ghana has been importing almost every A to Z of everything, from beef to rice to everything, from poultry, and we think that sunflowers, sorghum and others, we can do all those locally. The capacity is there. We had done that over the years, and we can do again.
Thank you very much. Land, resources, and market resources. Thank you very much, Nana, and the rest of the panels. Let's give them a round of applause. But they are not going anywhere, as we have the audience which has been sitting here. Ooh, I didn't even say it's time for questions, but hands are already up. So let's take a set of questions, and you can ask the presenters or the panelists. I see Ali, Prof, and 2. Let's take 4. Okay. There's 2 more. Round 2, Benjamin. Let's keep them short, right? So that we can have another round and more people engaged. Okay. Benjamin?
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick question to the presentation on soybean in the Zambian presentation. The 2. Now, for soybean, you said the government has been banning export. But I want to ask, are there smuggling activities? Is informal, cross-border trade of soybean taking place in Zambia? That's one. Then on the beef value chain, if I heard you right while you were presenting, it's like you said beef was the least in the ranking, but you still chose it. Why?
Thank you. Soybean, Zambia. What are the export markets, and how attractive are they? And secondly, considering the trade tariff war that is going on right now with regards to soybean, how does the situation look like from the export perspective, and considering the Zambian case? Rice, Ghana. Production efficiency in rice is low. So would it possibly make economic sense to procure rice from the international market? In other words, when you look at the welfare economics, who are going to be beneficiaries? Who will benefit more? The consumer, the producer, or the government in terms of taxes? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ali from FAO. My question is also related to the Zambia presentations. For the beef industry, where do you see the growth is coming from? Is it increasing head size or increasing productivity, whether it's offtake rates or carcass weights? I mean, it actually matters where growth comes from, because it affects resource use. The other question that's related to the beef and soybean is, have you considered the pool from beef by in soybean industry, right? The spillover, right? If you develop the beef value chain, I mean, more feed will be demanded. So have you considered that scenario? Essentially, that also reduces the investment that you need in the beef, in the soybean sector.
Thank you. Prof. Chola, you'll be the last one in this round. And I see people are willing to sacrifice tea.
Thank you. Maybe mine are both comments and questions because I'm still part of the PPVC. The question is on the soybean, the crushing capacity, and they attribute this to energy as one of the causes. But I'm saying, how binding is this as a constraint to crushing capacity? Because in Malawi we found the similar challenge, and our thinking is the low production, low supply is a key constraint to the use of the crushing capacity. The second one is more of a comment. I like the feasibility assessment that Andrew presented for Ghana. But I think the idea of trying to push all the costs to the government makes some of these to look impossible. And yet, I know a number of them, like the infrastructure, they have public good characteristics, which more likely the government has to take up a bigger role. But when you look at improved seeds, the private sector can easily come in one way or the other. So why can't you take this as something that you can take forward as the implementation support to make sure that the government sees where it can come in, like in R&D, but including the private sector, instead of just looking at this huge amount of money and taking it to the government. It may really look impossible, but something that is possible under some public-private partnership arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you. Presenters, I think the questions were directed to presenters. You will get the next round. Who wants to go first? Andrew, Brian, Fuasa. Okay, Fuasa is ready.
Hope I captured all the questions directed to me. I think the first one was in regards to why beef was selected, even though it was ranked last amongst the livestocks considered. So when you look at the livestock sectors that are prioritized by the government, you've got aquaculture, poultry, dairy, and beef. Historically, the other three have received considerable attention in terms of policy support when you scan through the documents. When you look at actual investment infrastructure, the other three have got significant contribution. So the reasoning when we sat down with the ministry in selecting it was that to get it to where the others are, we need to prioritize it. Yes, poultry is being invested by both commercial and smallholder farmers, and government are happy with how the sector is growing and do not see it as a priority to continue to invest it compared to where beef is. So that was some of the thinking in selecting beef over the others. In terms of where we see the growth coming from when the reform is taken up, is we contextualized the issues of the calving rate, because I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, our national calving rate is on average is 28%, but when we look at good practice, this needs to be higher. So we picked moderate growth to address that issue. We looked at what's it called? Production. So we also estimate that this will increase by reducing the mortality rate. And we also made assumptions based off of the good practice around our regional neighbors. But not just the two. We also looked at the modalities in which the beef is going to be reared. And so the beef volumes also be increased through the feedlots, increasing the carcass weight. So those were some of the issues which will assist our growth. Thanks.
I think there have been some questions around the soybean value chain. One of them was whether there's informal cross-border trade that could account for some of the soya that could be leaving the country. Now, my response to that is there are two products actually that are exported. One is the soybean seed itself, which is the raw product, as well as the soybean meal, which is processed, and it's an input in the feed industry. So of the two, the soybean meal is a larger component, is a larger product being exported to a larger extent compared to the bean. But there have been years where the bean has gone out quite substantially. So in terms of informal cross-border trade, we do not see much of it happening as compared to the formal trade, because there are some of the industries or the processors have these kind of agreements with processors in the other countries. For instance, there are feed mills around the country in Kenya and whatnot, and you find that the feed, the soybean feed goes actually directly through that channel from one manufacturer to the next. So we see very little informal cross-border trade happening. Then there was a question on export markets, which are our markets for soybean exports. So number one, I think I would mention Kenya. Zambia is exporting quite a bit of soybeans to Kenya. We've also exported to Tanzania in some years, I think 2023, but that was not so much destined for Tanzania. It was actually also going in overseas markets. As far as China, when I think the demand was being redirected to Africa, I think this is a situation that we're also beginning to see now, that between the US and China, there are all these disruptions. There could be demand coming from overseas as well. But so just to give an example, that in 2023 we saw soybean moving from Zambia all the way up to China through Tanzania. I think there was a question on the synergies or spillovers between beef and soybean. I think as the beef industry grows, it begins also to demand for soy through the feed. So there's synergy between the two industries as well, where we're going to see more domestic demand growth in soybeans as the beef industry also begins to grow. So definitely there is some synergy there. There was a question about energy, whether the binding constraint is the electricity supply or indeed just low supply. Low supply coming from the domestic market. So yes, I do agree that sometimes there are issues which constrain supply of the raw soybean into the processing industry. For instance, when the El Niños occur, you find that the supply is quite low and it constrains the production. But indeed, the energy, when we talk to processors, it really came out as a strong, as a very important issue, because there's a lot of downtime during their processing when their machines are supposed to be running and they are completely off. So that really constrained their production. And if you saw during our presentation, we mentioned that it's as low as 33% of the processing capacity. And the capacity right now is standing over 740,000 metric tons of installed capacity. So that is a big issue. I also mentioned export bans. Export bans are also constraining the capacity for utilization, because we're looking at the domestic market, which is quite small compared to the installed capacity. And if we opened up exports, it will just increase to the level that we projected, I think, in one of the last slides. Thank you.
Is this one? Okay. So on the question of to whose benefit, our initial analysis suggests that the primary producers of rice have the highest gross margin across the value chain. So aggregators' margin is not as high as the primary producers of rice, nor the retailers, primarily because a lot of the rice production in Ghana is rain-fed. And so the cost of production is low. Once you are able to produce, you get quite a lot. Then rice produced in Ghana does not also attract VAT. So all primary products or produce, there are no VATs on that. So I don't think the government has an intention of extracting rents from there. But people who do processing and sales, they will definitely pay some taxes. The objective here is a food security objective one. Because there could be a day when Vietnam will say, no rice for Ghana. What do we do? When we've ramped up our consumption from 16 kgs per year to over 40. So we need to pay attention to local production. And our desire for the self-sufficiency is not one of showing off, but preparing for potential disruptions in good times. We are preparing for the resilience now, so that in future, if India decide not to export, we can still have some rice. And Prof, I agree with you that we don't have to put all things on the doorstep of government. And that is entirely our point, that there are some progressive small-scale farmers who are willing to adopt improved seeds and fertilizer. Can we promote them through extension so that on their own they can procure them, or through the what we call rural banks, they can finance some of these things? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, and the presenters. I've been told that I have less than 5 minutes. Is it okay if we wrap it here, or will those who had their hands up be offended? I will allow it on the basis that we take 3 questions and no question will take more than 60 seconds. You have 60 seconds to ask your question, straightforward.
Thank you so much. Joseph Kanyamga from CAD, Malawi. My question goes to Zambia. Building on Prof. Chiwaula's comment, I was wondering why improved seeds are missing in your soya pack, because private sector, could easily venture into that, given your challenges to do with, seed recycling. I also want to understand your domestic demand. Is your production currently able to meet that demand, or you have excess production? To Ghana, what's the status of the seed system currently? You talked about the low motivation. To what extent is it developed? Do we have improved seeds available? Thank you.
60 seconds, please.
Yes. My name is Cliff from the Agricultural Development Fund here in Rwanda. My question was for Ghana. You mentioned there were about 88 warehouses that were currently not being used. I just wanted you to elaborate on the struggles or why that is the case.
Last question over there.
My question is to the man that talked about the private sector. I think he's from Ghana also, a neighboring country to mine. You talk about land tenure system being a challenge, especially for the private sector. What is being done, particularly concerning the greenhouse innovation in agriculture, to be able to help mitigate that challenge?
Yes, go ahead. Last question.
Thank you so much. My name is Anita. I'm from Cheno, Rwanda. My question goes to the last panelist, where he mentioned the policies and the policymakers. I got a question where he said government decides on the land use, the land ownership, and the private sector gets scared of investing in a long-term projects. And it got me to wonder whether is there any stand or any dialogues that are being done about the population increase in the future, which means the demand for food too. And again, the land will not be increasing. And that got me to wonder whether, is there anything, any stand between the two, the policymakers and the land users, to navigate the situation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions. They were really brief, and the answers, I'm expecting them to match the levels in any order.
And very briefly, so for the seed system, especially for rice, it's not as developed as that of maize. But in the last 15 years, we've made some progress. First, in terms of capacity to do the research. The second step is to get outgrowers, seed growers to come on board. That is crucial. And then the third has to do with the issue of cold storage. Because sometimes people pick the seeds from the storage houses, keep it for some time, and before you even go to the field, it started germinating. So there is a whole issue around that. Although now I know there is a policy, so probably that could improve. For the warehouses, yes, under one program called the One District, One Warehouse, each district is being given either a 1 ton or 2 ton warehouse, and that has been built in some of the districts. But to the extent that those warehouses are in central locations, if I have even 30 bags of rice, it doesn't make economic sense to take it there and bring it back. So how do we operationalize those warehouses so that aggregators can manage them, bring the rice and keep them there? Or potentially we get milling plants close to those warehouses so that after milling we can put them there. Those kinds of discussions can go on. And with the relationship with the private sector and the policymakers, we believe we will do something about it. Thank you.
BC, you had a question to answer.
Okay. I think there was a question on improved seed, whether there's any intervention that we're proposing to actually boost improved seed. Yes, if maybe I could just elaborate just slightly on the second intervention, which we are calling technology levy, introducing a technology levy, and how that is being proposed to work. We're saying that if a levy of just about 1.2% of farmers' production is collected and then distributed to seed companies would actually invest more in R&D, that is around improved seed. And maybe we could have a situation where seed recycling reduces and there's more adoption of hybrid seed retention each and every season, because right now farmers use mostly recycled seed. So that is what we're recommending. I think there was a question around excess production, whether we are actually in a surplus position when it comes to soybeans. The answer is yes. We have the private sector which has heavily invested in the soybean processing in excess capacity. So basically we are sitting at around 740,000 metric tons of processing capacity. So basically, yes, what needs to be done is basically boost both domestic demand as well as export. But I could say in short, we are in an export position. And for this value chain to grow any further, we need to allow exports to grow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, BC. Nana, you had a question directed at you?
No, I actually have a recommendation. Post-harvest losses. How do we address that? The private sector has invested in tons, and there's glut in production, but the warehouses are not available or close by, as Prof indicated. Can bring it here and then take it back. So post-harvest losses are the issues that we need to address critically, because other than that, we're wasting the resources. So those are the areas I think we should be meeting with government and finding common ground in a dialogue platform periodically to enhance post-harvest losses.
Okay. Delegates and panelists, presenters, thank you very much. Let's give ourselves a round of applause, because not only did we make this interactive, I can hear, going to Alan's point when he was providing the overview, that this is a complex process. It is slow, it is interactive, and I think in the 2 hours that we spent here, we just experienced that. But maybe before the photographers come here, let me just maybe put across a few takeaway points which came from the panel and the presenters. But maybe I need to preface that by saying that, PPVC, in as much as it is about the technical abilities, the integration of various analytical tools, data, as well as bringing in stakeholders and various agencies, at the core of it is about 3 things: the resources, the people, and the economy. It is about how that combination works to get the outcomes that lead to prosperity, the dream that Fuasa talked about, and all other issues that were raised in here. And I think that is the main message that as we think about, as we ask people in the house, is also about how, at the end of the day, do these resources, the people, as well as the economy combined to lead to those. But just specific issues, and maybe coming from the panelists, the issue of resources, the budgetary allocations, after the analysts and the researchers have indicated how much it would cost, the policy angle needs to come in, assess further. Do we have resources? Can we borrow money? Can we attract investors? Can they make money out of the investment that they make? I think that came across. The second point, which was also in the form of questions, was about, the question came to more or less on beef, to say, if beef was the lowest ranked, how does it end up being prioritized? But this also illustrates the role of PPVC, and it also comes from the discussions, the panel on the pre-conference workshop, about governments. They are faced with multiple objectives to achieve, and at a given point, they did not use just the rankings, but they use PPVC as a vehicle to help them address some of the basic or the immediate needs, whichever way government priorities are. In other words, PPVC on its own is not only about what we think as researchers, but how it helps, the government as well as other stakeholders in the process. But so it's not about picking winners, but it is about picking those that are able to address the issues that are at hand in that partnership of decision making. I think the case of Ghana would carry on discussing it, but you get a balance between import replacement versus food self-sufficiency versus what you would need to move the society going forward. I think Mr. Nana mentioned the capacity that is there, but it's the coordination of all those, which is the capacity of the people, the land that he's so, I can tell you that he's passionate about, as well as now how do you translate that into the outcomes that we need. And I would just end maybe with the last point around just the government. I think government participation, we heard how important it is in the process in integrating the research into the outcomes that they are looking into building capacity, but also identifying some of the shortcomings that they have. And I didn't have a sense that they were quite keen to hide some of those, be it from Ghana or Zambia, but to say, with what we have at the point where we are, this is what we are able to do, this is what we commit to do, and let's roll on and focus on what we can achieve. So with those takeaway points, and maybe you have different ones, let's carry on engaging the panel, the presenters, and everyone here. As I said at the beginning, PPVC has we are now on an 8-year journey, and it carries on. So let the fire continue to burn, but most importantly, let it make a difference in our governments, in our lives. So I think panelists, those online, those who traveled here, Brian and Andrew, Brian and Fwasa, you made my job look like I know what I'm doing. But I was just writing on what you are doing. And you, the audience, thank you for keeping up with me or tolerating me. But if I made a mistake, I do apologize. I enjoyed this session. I don't know about you. So thank you very much. Let's break for tea or coffee, and let's make it a 10-minute break, and by 20 past the next session needs to start. So officially, we are on tea break. Thank you very much.
gateway to East Africa. Your 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 gateway to East Africa.
a particular policy that support this value chain in our Oreda or in our district, because that's the priority crop for that. So that's the whole idea of this platform. And allow me to invite Braden from SEAT. He's part of the team that did the developing, and they're currently, we've gone through a series of testing, modification. Braden, if you're online, you can just let me know. Braden will take us through a demo of the platform so that we have an understanding of how the platform works, what is it, what the platform can be able to do. And I know some of you have interacted with it, but for those who don't have, who've not interacted with it, this is the opportunity. Okay, Braden.
Yep, I'm here.
You can do the demo, and then we'll go back to the opening remarks for Alan, because so that we have everyone in the room. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Let me just share my screen real quick. Sorry, one moment. Having issues with Zoom. All right, perfect. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, thanks George for the introduction. I'm Braden Youngberg. I work for the Alliance of Biodiversity International in SEAT, which is the center leading the development of the Adaptation Atlas. I'm based in Montpellier. Sadly, I couldn't join in person today, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me with the email up here on the screen, or you can see the email on our website. And yeah, please feel free to get in touch if you want to talk more about how you can use it, if you have any questions, or if you want to contribute in any way. So the Adaptation Atlas really kind of is designed, in short, as a decision support tool to make data related to climate risks, exposure, vulnerability, and adaptation as like actionable and easy to use as possible. The latest version of the Atlas has really grown out of this problem, being that there's kind of massive amounts of data available in the world, and massive amounts of data related to climate and adaptation, but that data has certain limitations with it, be that the size of it, 40 terabytes of data, that's not something kind of the average computer, an average person can process and turn into some sort of insight. Takes a massive amount of compute power and a massive amount of time. Often these data sets are from different sources, they're in different formats, they need different harmonization to be used together, and all of those kind of require additional steps and time and knowledge that really kind of poses barriers to their use. So our goal with the Atlas was to kind of untangle this mess and to turn it into something that can be used very quickly to answer these different questions for people that don't have the time to run all the analysis themselves. So the Atlas, we compiled all of this data from kind of the best sources we could find, some of where we generated some new analysis, and we turned all of this data into bite-sized and digestible chunks of information that anyone can understand without having to do much analysis on their own. So it's not just limited to geospatial specialists and climate researchers and statisticians. It can be used and digested by policymakers and slightly less technical people. So just lowering that barrier to adoption. To surface this information, we took a slightly different approach that we hoped would be more user-friendly. So unlike a traditional atlas of maps, with like a GIS style interface that gives you a bunch of maps and things to click on, we designed the Adaptation Atlas in a kind of more atlas of stories kind of way. So there's still maps that can be found all throughout the atlas. Most of the notebooks contain different maps, but you can also find kind of quick interactive insights, figures, narratives, different plots that you can copy and paste into reports, and that will kind of give you those answers quicker than if you were needing to go through and kind of run your own analysis on them. So to apply that to real world use cases, because that's ultimately the goal, you can go to the Adaptation Atlas website. From there, you can explore at the top, and I'll show this in a moment, but you can go to the use case stories and see how other people have used the Adaptation Atlas. I think we've got probably 15 different narratives on there of how people have used the Atlas and Atlas data in their own research and for their own policy and for their own proposals. From there, you can also access the data explorations, and these are really the core of the Atlas. The data explorations are these data stories that I was talking about earlier, and they are ultimately designed to just target very specific questions and give you answers to those specific questions as quick as possible. It's where we surface all of our process data sets through maps, figures, and those dynamic insights that I had mentioned. And if those data explorations don't give you the answers that you need, we have the Atlas Stack Catalog, which is all of our raw data that has been kind of cataloged and harmonized using kind of industry standard methods and gold standard methods to make it more easily accessible for technical users that do want to do that additional analysis that the Atlas can't provide. We've also developed the Atlas in a way that's kind of very simple to build upon and develop new notebooks. It's very modular. So if there's an idea and if there's a notebook we don't have yet, so long as the data exists and so long as we have the data, it's actually very easy for us to kind of spin up a new notebook that answers a specific question or targets a very specific use case. And then from there, if that notebook's no longer needed or needs to be updated, we can go in and update it and change it very quickly. So that was really the kind of the core philosophy and ethos of this version of the Adaptation Atlas, was to have it be kind of as flexible and as user-friendly as possible, both for people that want to contribute and share their own data, as well as people that just want to use the data as quickly and as easily as possible. So I've gone through and I've mapped a bunch of potential use cases of the Adaptation Atlas to the different notebooks and data explorations that we have. We have seen a lot of kind of different potential uses for the Atlas, and we've seen some of those in action, be that foresight analysis or writing a climate rationale or building a project proposal. From our team, we kind of developed some of these based solely on, or kind of specifically from our experience and our needs. So for example, the Formulate a Climate Rationale notebook, we had been using the Atlas and Atlas data and the platform, both internally and with external teams, to develop climate rationale for different projects, like in Togo or in Tanzania, for example. And from those, we learned and we realized, like, this is something we need a specific notebook for. This takes a lot of time. How can we make this an easier task, both for us and both for the hundreds of other people that are going to have to write a climate rationale every couple of weeks or every month? And how can we make that a faster process? How can we lower that barrier? Other notebooks are a little bit more broad, and they can be used kind of in tandem with each other to answer specific questions that may be a piece of these different potential use cases. And then, of course, if you do want to do further analysis, like I mentioned earlier, we can spin up a new notebook very easily. You can access our data through the data exploration portal, or you can access the raw data through the stack. So from here, I'm just going to give a very kind of brief demo of the tool so you can see how it would be used in action. I'll focus on the Climate Rationale notebook just because that is one of the ones we're quite proud of and one that we did develop kind of solely for a specific use case, and one that we've used very recently for this kind of specific use. So let me just share that tab now really quick. So when you get to the main Adaptation Atlas platform, if you can all see this, this is how the page roughly is going to look. At the top here, you'll see an about, where you can kind of see our ethos, what I was mentioning earlier, why we developed things the way we did. If you click on our work, you'll see these data explorations. Those are the notebooks that I had mentioned, the use cases, and then some quick reads based on some different topics. the use cases, you can see we've got a very long list. You can go through and click and see how other people have used this tool and use the data that we provide. And then there's also the data explorations that you can access through here. You can also get involved or click on the Get Involved page. That provides more information about how to access our data. If there's a notebook that you want developed or that you want to develop, it kind of gives some insight into how you can do that. It points you to the different tools that we've used, some documentation on how you can copy the tool if you want to modify the entire platform for your own specific use. Everything is open source, so we very much encourage you to use this however you need to, whether that's the tool as itself, or if you want to copy all of the code and pass it to your own developers to develop it for themselves. So back to the data explorations, because that's really, like I said, kind of the key component and really what I want to present to you today. Like I said, you can access them through here, but the better way to access them and slightly more straightforward, because they're so important, is just straight on our homepage. If you scroll down the page a little bit, you'll get to this data exploration section. And from here, you can see and access all of the different data explorations that we have. At the moment, we have 9 different ones tailored to different questions and different topics. And then you can see we have a couple more coming soon. These are 2 of the ones we have coming soon, but there are more in the pipeline as well. And I'll discuss that at the end of the session. But as you click on one of these, so I'm interested in writing a climate rationale, or I'm working on writing a climate rationale, I'll click on this. Since I know my use case already, I don't really need to explore the other notebooks. But if you don't quite know what notebook is going to fit your problem, you can access the different notebooks and kind of explore them through this page. It just gives you a very brief overview of what the different notebooks include, the key concepts, the themes, and some of the answers that each notebook is trying to address. Since I know I want to access the climate rationale one, I can click on interact with this data. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up a new tab. It's going to put me on this new platform called Observable. And that's where we've developed all of the notebooks. We developed them on this platform for the reason of they're very quick and easy to develop. And for scientists and people who are used to working in Jupyter notebooks, it's a very similar platform. So it is a lower barrier to adoption compared to creating an entirely new website from scratch. And this was really to promote that community involvement. So as I get to the observable notebooks, you'll find yourself on this page. You'll have the header image. And as you scroll down, you can see kind of a summary of all the different things in the notebook. I realize I'm not sharing this tab. There we go. So I'll end up on this page. You can see I'm on a new website. As I scroll down, you'll see the table of contents. You'll also see a language toggle. Currently, we support French and English. In the future, we'd love to be able to support additional languages. And we've built the platform in a way that we can add new languages fairly quickly, as long as we have the translations for them. As I scroll down the page, you'll, in every notebook, get an overview of what it includes, how it can be used, and the sections and questions that it's trying to address. Each section in the notebook is targeted to a specific question, so each notebook will have 5 or 6 questions that it's trying to provide you the answers to in quite a targeted way. You'll come down and you'll see all of our different figures on the page. All of these figures are interactive, so if you hover over different sections of them, you'll see tooltips come up, which will tell you kind of additional information you wouldn't otherwise get from the figure. They're also dynamic, so as you change these different selections, up here in this little country drop-down box, I can select a different country, and everything in the notebook is going to update and show me the insights and the data for that selection. As I scroll down further, you can see we have these quick insights. So again, these are all going to be dynamic, and this was really to just provide you with quick answers you can copy and paste into a document, or numbers you can quickly copy and use for your writing. So it was really, this notebook is very targeted just for that use case, although it can be used for other things as well. So these insights you can see in the bold. The bold is kind of the pieces that are interactive. Those are the pieces that are going to change as you make different selections. So I would suggest to just explore this, click through and see what changes. and how it can be used to answer your different questions. As you scroll down the page further, you're going to start hitting some different figures, be that figures such as this one, which shows historical climate hazards and climate anomalies based on your different selections. So at the moment, we support the four SSPs in this notebook, as well as 4 timeframes. Some of the other notebooks only include 2 at the moment, but those will be updated in the future. We also have 6 or 7 climate hazards that you can go through and select. As you select these different climate hazards, everything in the notebook is going to update, and you will get the data for those climate hazards, be that through these figures, which you can pull the numbers from. You can download the data that's shown directly as in the figure if you want to download that as a table to use in further analysis or to make your own figures. So if you click that, it will just download a CSV that you can open up and use in Excel, for example. And again, you get these quick insights after every figure that distills the figure down into kind of slightly more tangible numbers that you can use for your own reporting. So the climate rationale includes both the historical, the future climate projections. It also includes commodity exposure to historic and future climate hazards under different scenarios. So you can go through and see what crop is most exposed to a climate hazard currently, as well as what is projected to be exposed to a climate hazard in the future. And then you can also get some information on impacts. This notebook we are rapidly updating based on some user feedback. So there's going to be updated values in this in the coming couple of weeks and coming couple of months, as well as some new figures that should hopefully limit the, or continue to lower that barrier to adoption and increase the usefulness in building climate rationales. Let me jump back to my slide really quick. So that's just one of the many different uses. That's the one I'll focus on today, but I definitely encourage you to explore how these can be used for different uses. If you don't know what notebooks are going to be best to answer your different questions and for your own uses, please feel free to reach out to us and we can happily kind of direct you. Otherwise, I would just suggest exploring the tool and seeing what we have to offer, the different data sets that we have available, etc. As I mentioned earlier, we're rapidly working to continue to build on the Atlas and make it a better tool for everyone. This is largely based on feedback from all of our users and probably many of you in this room who have visited the Atlas or have used it. We really thank you for all of this feedback. It's been incredibly valuable to build this tool in a way that people want it to be used and to build it in a way that people will actually use it. It's great to have a tool, but it's even better to have a tool that people use. I mean, that's that's the hope always, of course. So before the end of this year, we plan to have a kind of new major release in the next couple of months. That's going to include like huge improvements to a lot of the existing notebooks, both for performance, which has always been a limitation with how we've done the Atlas, as well as the user interface and increased functionality that was asked to be added. So initially, we kept things quite simple so that people wouldn't get overwhelmed with options, but generally, people have come to us and said, oh, I want this, I want this. This feature would be really useful. So we're rapidly trying to add in a lot of those suggestions and things that you as users have asked for to make it a more useful tool for you. We're also adding in a lot of new data updates before the end of the year. So we'll have an option of using the NASA Next GDDP climate data, as well as updated exposure data from Gridded Livestock of the World 2020 and NAPSPAM 2020. And those will be using more updated values as well, because currently both of those are based on 2015. And then we also have the Atlas Hackathon, which just ended on Monday, and we're just now starting to judge and review these notebooks. So we had roughly 450 participants, maybe a few more, from 62 different countries, all working to develop new notebooks for the Adaptation Atlas, based on ideas and feedback from a lot of our users and probably a lot of you in this room. We had 8 different submissions of different ideas, and we converted those into hackathon challenges that will eventually become notebooks in the Adaptation Atlas. So we're very excited for that, and are just starting to see the fruits of that challenge. So hopefully in the next couple of months, those will be up on the website and address specific challenges that you have, you as users have proposed. And then we also are quickly working on a kind of prototype LLM interface. We understand that although we've made these data stories, you can go through and get the answers. Sometimes it's not the answers you want, and not everyone has time to do additional analysis. So we're testing a prototype of how we can offload some of that burden onto an LLM, such as ChatGPT, to go through and pull from our data, so you still get kind of robust results that you know are backed by our data, but you can ask it questions that we don't necessarily answer, and it'll be able to provide you with figures and data sets that we have as part of the Atlas, but may not currently be surfaced to you. So that's kind of our future goal and some of our upcoming plans. That's all I have for you. It's very brief. So again, please feel free to reach out to me, but thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great to show this platform, and I really appreciate all of the feedback that we've gotten so far from all of our different users, and please continue to provide that because it's incredibly valuable to us. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. A round of applause for Braden. Now that I have your attention and you're back in the room, allow me to call Alan. Alan is no stranger for introduction. He can give us the vision of our funding partner, Gates Foundation. Welcome, Alan. Yeah, thanks, George. Thanks, Braden. So yeah, it's me again. So this particular project that the Gates Foundation funds is run by a lady called Tess Russo, who can't be here this week. But I sit very close to Tess in Seattle and sort of look at the Atlas, the Adaptation Atlas, and have contributed into our thinking on what it can be and what our vision is for the Atlas. And you know, ultimately, we would love it to be informing policy. Hence, this is a good forum to be showcasing the Atlas. It's a very important tool in the kind of climate research community. And I think some of the features that Braden was just giving us a very brief preview of certainly inform that community in a very sort of purposeful and compelling way. But ultimately, Tess's vision, my vision, Bill Gates's vision, is for this to inform policy, right? So when it comes to climate adaptation, there's all the nuance of agroecological zones. You know, the climate varies significantly over short distances on the continent. There's soil conditions to take account of. There's commodity choices. There's altitudes. There's all of that complexity points to very nuanced solutions. So climate smart agricultural practices, crop rotation, residues, water harvesting, inorganic and organic fertilizer applications. It's a patchwork of complexity, right? And again, back to policy, there's definitely room and need for public support for delivering these solutions at scale. But they're very nuanced, and so the sort of spatial targeting of these solutions becomes really paramount. In a context of limited resources, governments really have to think carefully about where they allocate money to what solutions in which parts of the country. And this Atlas is a pathway towards that decision making. Now, our bigger kind of stepping it back a little bit, our bigger vision at the foundation is to eventually combine a tool like the Atlas with the PPVC project that we heard about this morning, with FAO's PolOpt tool, which you'll hear about tomorrow, with IFPRI's REAPA tool, which Alamayu briefly showcased yesterday when he was talking about a paper in Ethiopia. You know, we want integration of these different tools to best articulate the best uses of those limited public resources. So today you're getting a bit of a preview into a very important piece in that bigger architecture that we as the Gates Foundation would love to support governments in bringing together, but it's a journey. And ANAPRI, along with the Agnes group, the ATI group in Ethiopia, and the, I'll get this acronym right, RCMRD group in Kenya, the mapping group, they've been doing great work in, all under the leadership of George and SAF, been doing great work in testing the Atlas, developing user case studies in terms of, well, how do we actually apply the Atlas in the real world, and that's involved building capacity of some local partners, but the goal is policy application. So we have still got some ways to go in that journey, while colleagues at the CGIAR continue to build out the tool itself, and many colleagues in the room start to think through those use case applications with that bigger vision of policy application. So acknowledging it's a journey, it's a very cool and interesting tool to interact with. Braden has just given us a little tiny corner of it. There's loads of really excellent data in here, which I know you will find useful in all sorts of types of policy research and development of policy briefs, etc., given how prominent climate adaptation, climate mitigation is in all of our worlds these days. So with that, I will hand it back to George. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for that. A bigger round of applause, please. Thank you. So we switch gears a little bit to talk to some of the test partners that have tested the Atlas, and we're going to have a panel discussion just to understand their experience. What it's good to you always hear from the horse's mouth. Is it so? To start us off, allow me to call the first panelist, Berket from ATI. So a little bit about Berket. So Berket is a data management team lead at the ATI in Ethiopia. He oversees the design and implementation of data system to enhance the quality, accessibility, and interoperability of agricultural information. He's a data science and big data analytics, and he leads and facilitates secure data sharing amongst government, researchers, and development partners. The second panelist is Telvin Danger. Telvin is a researcher specializing in agriculture, land use management, climate change, and policy. He works at the Africa Group of Negotiators, expert support, which is in short we say AGNES. He supports efforts to advance Africa's position in global climate negotiation. He has over 4 years experience in research, project management, implementation across Eastern and Southern Africa. Telvin applies a multidisciplinary approach to addressing agricultural and environmental challenges, and he holds a master's in environmental science from Egerton. Welcome. Thank you. Our third panelist is Josephat Makanga. He's the principal photogrammetrist at the Regional Center for Mapping Resources for Development in Kenya. He leads the thematic lead for wetland monitoring under the GAMES and Africa program. He oversees digital photogrammetry and other observation applications that support decision making across Eastern Africa. He's worked with work spanning land degradation assessment, wetland mapping, information services, and capacity building using Copernicus data. He has over 20 years experience and has managed RCMRD Digital's photogrammetry lab and regularly presents on regional forums. Thank you. Welcome to the panel. And to close, the final panelist is Professor Tina Moyo, who is an agricultural economist and co-director of the Agriculture Trade Policy Institute at NAST. Her research focuses on smallholder market participation, value chain development, and rural livelihoods within the context of climate change and food systems resilience. She's an author. She's authored numerous publications and collaborates widely across Southern Africa on evidence-based policy and capacity building. Welcome. Thank you, panelists. Just to the first question I'll direct to on matters gender. Professor Tino, just to understand if you can explain to the panel, to the delegates in the room, how the Atlas has enabled gender-responsive analysis and its integration in matters adaptation planning. Thank you, and good afternoon, colleagues. I'm speaking on behalf of the ANAPRI. ANAPRI, yes. ANAPRI centers. And ANAPRI, as you might already know, is a network of 16 member countries. But for this testing exercise, 8 of those centers tested the Atlas. And in their testing, they were each given the liberty to select different ways of testing the Atlas. The first way, it was 3 ways that were given to them, just to give you some background. So each center was given the liberty to self-place themselves, either to customize the Atlas platform, as it was presented to you today by Braden, or to integrate their own data, locally available data, to the data that already exists on the Atlas platform, or thirdly, to use the Atlas platform as is in their country, depending on their test case. So each of the 8 test centers then took it up. And in the midst of what they were doing in the testing, they interrogated gender analysis. It was one of the major themes that we were pursuing as ANAPRI. And in that light, I would then share with you a little on what we picked up. The effectiveness of the Atlas as an enabler for gender-responsive analysis and its integration into adaptation planning. So the message we want to transfer or to share with you is that the Atlas has indeed enabled gender-responsive analysis, and it also enabled the integration of gender into adaptation planning for the different test cases. And there are 3 forms or 3 ways in which I think I can share as takeaway messages on how the Atlas actually came in handy in this gender-responsive integration and planning. The first one is inclusion of gender-specific data layers. You saw as Braden was presenting that the Atlas actually has a gender component, and in that gender notebook or the gender notebooks, the gender-specific data layers, and each of the test cases for ANAPRI could explore those notebooks and interact with them, and they were able to then tell stories of how and analyze the exposure to climate risks for women, and also to analyze gendered adaptive capacity within each country, and also to look at gender-related vulnerabilities. So that was one. And within that same point, the policymakers and researchers in each of the test case countries were able to identify regions where women are disproportionately affected by climate stressors. They were also able to prioritize adaptation investments that address gender-specific needs. They were able to evaluate how gender intersects with other factors like crop heat stress and labor impacts. I think you saw as Braden was presenting that the Atlas platform is an interactive platform. So the second point is the Atlas was able to support gender-responsive planning. And in this way, the ANAPRI test cases were able to inform climate adaptation strategies that include gender considerations. For example, each test case analyzed the gender information and was able to inform locally relevant gender-sensitive adaptation strategies. So for more detailed analysis for each of the test cases, you may, I think, during lunchtime or in the course of the evenings, interact with each of the test case centers and really delve deep into how they were able to do that. The second one was each test case was also able to come up with some policy recommendations on how gender can be integrated as a key dimension in policy. The third and last point that I want to make is that each test center, as a unique center, across the 8 countries was able to use, or let me say, I called it user-centered design, since each test case is unique and we have a diversity among the 8. It's a mix and a diverse mix of scenarios where we tested the atlas, and those test cases are located in 8 different countries. Like I said, I want to just mention the countries without mentioning the centers themselves. Ghana tested, Kenya tested. There is a center in each of these countries. Malawi tested, Mozambique tested, Nigeria, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. And they were able to understand how gender data is used in real-world decision-making processes, and also to capture feedback on the effectiveness of gender-responsive tools through the training sessions and the interactions that they had with the communities in their countries. So having said all these points that we capture, and we say, okay, well, the Atlas is recognized as an effective tool. We also want to say it is all good, but there is still some missing gender data that we can still integrate into the Atlas to make it more effective going forward. Thank you. Thank you,
Professor Tina, for that. It brings back to the second question that I have. So yes, we've tested it. So what are some of the impact? I'll ask Telvin just to speak about what has been the impact, and then we.
Yeah, thank you very much, George. And just before I get to the question, I think it's a privilege to be here in a room full of policy experts and so on, because our intention, hopefully within such conferences, is to see how we can really inform policy and also translating this policy into action. And maybe I can pose a question to all of us to just think through. Africa is known to be policy heavy. But when it comes to implementation, we are very light, right? So the question might be, is it that we advise policies that are not implementable, or the gap is within the implementation, which is now translating this policy into practice? And for me personally, where I sit, I think decision support tools now play a very critical role in trying to close this gap. And Atlas is one of those tools that tries to concise and summarize and analyze very big data into very nuanced, context-specific and granular solutions or interventions that then at the country level, at the subnational level, to allow practical local interventions. So now just to reflect on your question, George, through this adaptation Atlas use case, we've managed to, I'm going to mention 2 achievements that can easily be picked up by many of the colleagues in the room. The first one is around unlocking climate finance. So through the Atlas, we've been working with the governments of Ghana, governments of Ethiopia, governments of Kenya to help strengthen their capacity in developing bankable proposal, again trying to close in the implementation gap. And what we've done is build a cadre of national experts that are coming from government, coming from CSOs and private sector, to be able to learn and equip them with technical and practical skills to develop this bankable project pipeline. And for Ghana, we've managed to develop 6 project pipelines, 2 of which have been submitted, and 4 of which are in the process. Same to Kenya and Ethiopia. Coincidentally, all of them have developed 6 concept notes, 2 of which from each country have been submitted, particularly to the UNFCCC. And we are working with direct access entities to try and submit this other pipelines to ensure that we've actually unlocked financing. And most of which I think Braden has showcased, particularly looking at the formulate climate rationale, because that has been the biggest gap in Africa, just to try and make the climate case to unlock climate finance. The second one, again, I think can also be picked up is around looping in the legislation, the legislative arm of government. When it comes to climate policy, climate action, executive is the one that we mostly look at. But we know that the legislative arm of government plays a critical role. One, of course, in legislation, in domestication of all these ambitions that we do into the national context. They play a very critical role in, of course, budgeting, appropriation, and of course, they are representing the people at the local level. And therefore, we've been working to strengthen parliaments across Africa. And just for this use case, we invited and trained members of parliament to use and pick up some critical information from the atlas. And I can just mention one country that this has been a success, the National Assembly of Zambia, and I'm happy that I've interacted with some colleagues from Zambia. They've been able to now adopt this tool as part of their e-chamber platform, and that means that they will be using this to, one, parliamentary staff can easily develop policy briefs, can develop budget briefs to help members of parliament make informed decisions. Thirdly, we've also been working with CSOs, and particularly within the Southern Africa region. And it's important to loop in the CSOs because we know the role they play. And one of the critical use case that we've seen, and maybe it can be picked up, is that they use this as a community, a tool that can be used for community advocacy. So from here, from this tool, if you go through it and get time to really explore, you will be able to go through a journey of what are some of the climate risks and hazards, how is they going to impact livelihoods and lives. And this, particularly Botswana, as a case study, have used this to help almost climate literacy tool to help at the local level advance and showcase what are some of the challenges that countries are facing. Yeah.
Thank you, Telvin, for that. Just to switch on gears a little bit, and you've talked about the different countries. So if you can go back to RCMRD, which was testing it at the county level. So Josephat, if you can just mention what are some of the impact that you've seen at the county level in Kenya?
Thank you, George. And thank you, Gates Foundation, for sponsoring the Atlas. And also we are happy about the future updates that Bryden has talked about from RCMRD. So Kenya has a devolved structured governance, which allows the counties to be able to develop their own policies, initiatives, and strategies that are independent of the other counties. In that way, they are able to do localized solutions. So how we have used the Atlas together with the counties is first, we looked at the landscape analysis in the agriculture sector at all the counties in Kenya. We selected 8 counties, and we looked at their policies, we looked at the initiatives they have, we looked at the governance manifesto when they were doing the campaigns, their promises they made, and mostly we also looked at the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that looks at the grassroots empowerment of the farmers, and we are trying to see where does the Atlas plug in. So they have got very good initiatives, but they needed to also be looked against the climate risks and vulnerabilities. So for them to be able to utilize the Atlas, of course, we had to do a bit of capacity building, sensitize them about what is in the Atlas, how to navigate through it. But then they needed to have a footprint in the usage of the Atlas. So together with them, and I also want to add to what my colleague here has talked about, we have so many policies. Yes, we also found we have very many policies. What we found out is that for a policy to be effective, a level of co-design is needed. The users to whom the policies will be subjected to, they need to have a level of contribution. So with the counties, we look at the policies, and we look at the value chains that they're practicing. Each county, depending on their agroecological zones, cultural, and also their feeding patterns, they have their own value chains. Now looking at the Atlas, what are the risks these value chains undergo? So for them to be able to select the best adaptation methods that will bring the highest yields. So we developed what we called the knowledge products with the counties. That's where we came together. So the knowledge products, we have the bulletins. For the bulletins, it gives updates on what is happening in the agriculture sector within the season. What are the charges expected? Are we going to have more rainfall than we have had over the years? Are we going to have droughts in a certain county and what strategies they need to do? And through that, they can be able to mitigate or come up with the best practice. Do they need irrigation? At what time do they need the irrigation? That's the bulletins. So the county provides their own data, and then we use the atlas to look at the best practices or to extract the mitigation and the best the best family practices that they can enact to be able to have results. Then we have the fact sheet. The fact sheet now gives a summary of what that season has been in the form of production, level of production, value of production, which value chains did not produce as expected. Then we have what we are calling the gender-sensitive enterprise design, that we take through the counties the value chains. We look at the challenges based on the climate, based on the data they have, and from there, the counties can see the gap. What gender demographic group is disadvantaged? Is it the women? Is it the youth? Is it the elderly? So there, we are able to take the county through a selection criteria to select which best enterprise favors which gender. And that way they are able to have a balance. Then we have the feasibility report. The feasibility report is also a knowledge product that we have co-designed with the counties, that they're able to look at the best investment that they can do, where, because the atlas is very, it has got the geospatial component, which is very strong. It tells you where the best investment can be done. So through the feasibility report, the counties are able to select certain enterprises based on the agroecological suitability that has return on investment. And that way, even the private sector can also use that tool to see if they want to support a county, which are the best enterprise or investments they can do within the county that will not bring losses to them. So to do that, we've done a level of training, capacitating the counties so that they are able to produce these knowledge products. And as we are talking, there is a group in the county, I think today they are in West Pokot, and they are training the counties on how to develop the knowledge products so that they can be able to start on their own to be able to continuously use that atlas and generating their own knowledge products. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephat, for that. So, so far we've heard from 3 use cases that have used the atlas as it is, and some with a little bit of modification. So we'll now hear the flip side from Ethiopia. So just to understand from you, Berket, how has it been in terms of, because in your case you've had to customize the atlas for the Ethiopian context. So if you can speak a little bit about the technicalities involved and what you've learned in the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, George. We are in a provision of customizing the Atlas tool. As we know, the Atlas platform is a data-driven platform. That means everything that is reflected on the system, like the visualization, the analysis, and also the time series data, all of them are dependable on the data what we fed. So what we have done is modernizing this data is the critical part. In order to get best advantage from the system, you need to feed the clear data, quality data. So what we have done is that we were trying to collect data from different governmental and non-governmental climate data, so that we created a data partnership, so that we can share data between the organizations. After we create the data partnership, the data and system integration will be the data and the system integration is the next task that we have done. We created a pipeline between these institutions, between these agri and climate related institutions, so that we verified the data, we standardize the data. And also we have worked on data related policies, governance, so that we will have standard data. Data is everywhere, scattered everywhere, so it has to be centrally stored, so that the quality data that we feed is the quality results that we can get from this tool. This tool or this platform is special platform that directly or indirectly affects the lives of the farmers. Policymakers, researchers, NGOs, private sectors, and donors are the main the main beneficiaries of this system. So that the policymakers has to get informed decision making from the system, and also the NGOs has to invest their money by getting pre-designed, pre-organized data. So donors also can see their impact on the lives of the smallholder farmer by getting the time series data. So the 3 points that has to question is about the data standardization, system integration, and capacity building. In addition, the capacity building comes in different perspective, in related to the practitioners and also the data managers. So we are building a capacity building for the system users, like the system users are they need to have a clear understanding of the system, how it works, how to interact, how to get in, how to extract data, so that they will be beneficial from the system. So what we have learned is data is the critical part for the system. The quality data that you feed the system is the best result that you can get. If you input a garbage data into the system, you will get a garbage information, and wrong policy will be followed, and the life of the smallholder farmer also will be also affected. So we are working on customizing the system in a moderate level. For example, we are adding some local language, local crops into the system, so that they are tailored according to our standard and need. Okay.
Thank you, Birket. I'll just back to you, Professor Tina, a little bit, if you can talk about the impact that you've seen from the ANAPRI side of things.
Thank you. Some of the points will echo what my colleagues from the other test cases have said. So I will just mention and pass, and then maybe mention others that haven't come up. So the 8 test cases from ANAPRI, diverse as they are, they had some common output out of interacting with the Atlas platform. And notably is the capacity building aspect. All of the 8 test cases were able to train different stakeholders in the countries, and these stakeholders ranged from postgraduate students to private sector actors, to government actors, different government levels, and that actually was very good for them to do because, like my colleague Barrett said, if you do not expose the stakeholders to the platform, they may not know about it, one. Two, it won't inform their decision-making processes. So it's important to take them through the platform, just the navigation process of the platform. So the ANAPRI test centers were also able to do that, which was remarkable. In addition to that, we have a center that, one of the centers, of the 8 centers, managed to customize the platform in full and created a platform for their own country, and this is for Ghana. So Ghana piloted the customization process to 2 districts, and they are still scaling out that process to the other districts that are remaining. And in that process, they were able to develop 14 notebooks for each of the districts. So it means they developed a total of 28 notebooks within the country. And there is it's a separate platform that you can actually navigate as well. Another one is the development of policy briefs. Some of the test centers were able to develop policy briefs. Some policy briefs are in circulation among the stakeholders in the countries. Some policy briefs are in draft form, and I can mention the countries. We have SUA in Tanzania, and we have, for policy briefs, we have Uganda. There is a center at Makerere University. And in addition, local training manuals. For one to train stakeholders on the platform, it's also easy to use language that you know they will understand. So if you develop your own training manual for the training sessions, it makes it easier for communication. So that took place. We have training manuals that were developed by certain centers. One in Pilaf in Nigeria, they developed a training manual that they've been using for training and capacity building. Uganda as well produced a training manual. And we have centers that, actually these are grouped. I will speak to this one as a group. A number of our centers out of the 8, they carried out an analysis of the economic benefits of taking up each of the mitigation strategies that they would recommend using IRR, NPV, internal rate of return, net present value, cost-benefit ratio, and they used that to inform evidence-based decision-making and also inform policy debates in each country. And those are grouped together. Malawi did that, Uganda did that, Rwanda did that, and Kenya did that. So I can leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, for that. So just to pick up 2 minutes as we wrap up this panel, and we call in the second panel, just to I'll start with Berket. If you can just talk a little bit about capacity building and the model that you approached. What will you mention a little bit, what has been the success, and which one will you recommend in your view, from your experience?
We are conducting capacity building for the system users, how to interact to the system, even for the researchers, different government and non-government organizations, experts. We are training the system how to use, so that in addition to the training, they give us a feedback and how to customize and what to customize, so that we customize according to their feedback.
Thank you for that. Telvin, 2 minutes as we wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, George. I think I'll look at it in maybe 2 ways. I'll look at it in terms of awareness and sensitization, but also on training, because not everyone knows of the Adaptation Atlas. I'm sure even in the room there are some who've just interacted with the Atlas. So one, we need to do a lot of sensitization and awareness spreading, but two, this tool is technical. Right? Not all of us are climate scientists, and it's quite technical. And therefore, we need to have this context-specific trainings, whether it's direct training, But then it's important to look at who your stakeholders are. If you're looking at policy makers, usually manuals and guides are not effective, and therefore we should look at direct training. So you get them in the room for a couple of days, take them through how to use the tool and how to adopt it, but importantly, how can they also adopt it within their own jurisdictions. And then for more of the youth kind of stakeholders, for more of the scientists who can easily pick this up, we can focus on tutorials, videos in different languages just for them to go through and ensure that they can extract all that can be extracted from the atlas.
Thank you. Jasfat.
Yeah, thank you. For us, we mostly use the TOT, the training of trainers, where we trained a pool of skilled trainers who can also cascade the training to the staff below them. But we also did the direct training, where we are taking the participants through learning by doing. That they go through the steps, they follow the steps as we do it, and then on their own they can be able to do it. We also did the direct, no, not the direct, the institutional. We have a college at the center, and we took some students through the atlas, and we are easily adaptable. They can even use their phone. It's a simple platform you can put on their phone, and they can also navigate, they can ask questions, they can look at the data. But the one that has worked more for us is the training of trainers. But we also had the mentorship program. We took young professionals who have just finished college, and we took them, and as we implemented the atlas, they also learn, and they can also be able to extract information and train others. Yeah.
Thank you, Josephat, for that. I would like to thank all the panelists for your time. As we head out to the second panel discussion, I will request the delegates if you can just jot down your question, and then at the end of the second panel, we can ask all the questions in a consolidated manner. So thank you once again, and let's appreciate the panelists. So we'll switch a little bit and gears a little bit and hear from the government side. So I'll request if we can have colleagues from government. First on the panel is Doshani Kadokera, who is a Malawian economist. Good. So he's working in the agricultural policy and food security space. He holds a role as a chief economist within the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Welcome. The second panelist is Longino Crescent. He's a senior economist at the Ministry of Agriculture in Tanzania, specializing in project planning, budgeting, and management. Welcome to the panel. The third panelist is Lily Chebet from Kenya. She's the Deputy Director at Kenya Agriculture and Food Authority, Nuts and Oil Crops Directorate. Karibu. Last and not least is Dr. Chantal Ingabire, who is the Director General of Planning at Rwanda Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources. Thank you. And last is Frank Kwesi Nansam, who is the Director, Administration and Climate Finance in Ghana. I don't think it's okay. I don't. Frank Kwesi Nansam Agre. So thank you, panelists. I'd like to start with Mr. Doshan, just to understand how would you describe your experience in using the atlas from the Malawi perspective. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, George, for having me. And I think as indicated earlier on, that Malawi is one of the countries that has piloted the Atlas 2. I think it's something that is a welcome development. It's a positive and insightful tool that is trying to link the climate data into the policy and the investment platform. I think in terms of the work that has been done in Malawi, which our colleagues from MAPAT have done, which was a case study of the banana value chain. When you look at how the tool has been used, it has been able to highlight in terms of the climatic risks that are within the areas that where the study was done, and also in terms of the economic returns, as well as ensuring the gender differentiation. When you look at Malawi is the majority of the farmers are the women, and the aspect of the gender that came in also helps in terms of how the exposure is spread across the country. You would be able to know who would be much affected, and as such, that would help in terms of the planning as well as the investments that may be required to do that. Apart from that, I think as a country, we are also able to come in terms of the data-driven decisions, whereby we are able to come up with drought risk profiling in order to understand for the government to know where the exposure is, the vulnerability is, and also how do you now finance those risks. But also, I think the tool has also come in terms of the evidence. For instance, ourselves, we're also using, well, as a country, we're moving forward with a proactiveness in the drought risk profile, and this comes in hand in terms of providing us data alternatives that can be used in the drought risk profiling, so that when you are customizing to the local context, we are able to use our own data. There's ownership on our part, but also we are able to inform the model with national data that we have as a country, and that goes on to the operationalization of our disaster risk financing strategies. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Gashani. Just to cross over the borders into Tanzania, Mr. Longimo, if you can just give us a perspective of the Tanzania experience.
Okay, thank you. In Tanzania also, this atlas is there, and of course we have many things that we are just getting from using it as follows: that government of experience Tanzania and how the tool is adapted. The tool atlas is adapted for the decision making, is used for providing climatic risk vulnerability, and gives economic returns data for agriculture in the food systems, in which this information sometimes are needed by donors like AGRA. And the lessons we have just is about it to translate complex climate into visual maps and actionable insights, or sometimes evidence-based policy for investments design and justification. But it brings together stakeholders into shared platforms and provide commonist into the providing information or data. Where we need training, sometimes capacity buildings are also given from information we obtain using this atlas. But the implication to the government, adaptation, planning, investigate, screening, monitoring, and early warning for decision-making support also is one of implications that we have in our country. Example, the use of agriculture 4.0. I don't know if you have heard about agriculture 4.0. Those information also can be obtained from using of Atlas. Example, agricultural farmers for the coffee crops. Also, adaptation type 2 is very important to map those people who can experience the coffee farming system. But the use of Atlas, we use it to investigate national data and the planning. During planning, example, ecological seasons, we can know that the season that is needed for a certain crop, and then we can make a decision or can plan for the season. For example, if the next season will be rainfall, then we can decide for crops in which are sustainable for rainfall. And we can customize adaptation of moderate to crop interest, like maize, bean, or any other crop as far as the investigation from Atlas is done. Finally, economic returns modeling for Tanzania context can also be captured through Atlas. And then the government, all government in Africa have used the adaptation of Atlas then to support climate resilient agriculture planning, investment decision, and adaptation priorities in Tanzania. Tanzania already shows related initiatives, which means institutional ground in favorable. In the concepts of Atlas, the country have a tool for spatial climate economic platform to strengthen the agricultural development in Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Longino, for that. Just to come back to our host, Mr. Seth, if you can just mention a little bit about the experience from the Rwanda perspective.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip Rumenera. I'm representing DG Planning. As per the country, just to mention that we are now implementing the new strategy, which is our new strategy for agriculture transformation, which include the food systems where we account contribution of different partners. So we really evaluate what we are doing under this Project Atlas platform. The country needs really information, reliable data, and since we are now involved in the food systems, it implies to consider all the sectors connected to agriculture to access to reliable data, to support the decision making. Our policies need really very accurate and reliable data to make sure that we make good decisions based on fact. So the same smaller farmers and other farmers, they really need information to make good decision and make forecast. Therefore, we evaluate what Atlas did under this project. For the case of Rwanda, I know they contributed in capacity building of farmers to at different levels, and also support as well. They are doing assessment in different schemes. You know, in Rwanda we have irrigation scheme. So for the smallholder farmers, for small-scale irrigation system, we have numbers of farmers involved. So Atlas worked with them to provide information which would help to predict and also to plan and make decisions. So this is very key for us as Rwanda. as we are planning, we really, as other countries affected by different climate change challenges, threats, so we need reliable information to plan, but also to predict and take decisions. So we really evaluate what we are doing and already providing a good positive effect in what we are doing as farmers.
Thank you for that. I'll now come to you, Madam Lily, just to understand the Kenyan context and just how the Atlas can further be utilized to support policy development in the Kenyan context. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. As had been alluded by my colleague from our CMRD, Kenya is implementing the Atlas, and they have worked extensively in 38 counties where they have implemented the Atlas, and they are focused on different kind of value chains. As he had mentioned, the counties have different priorities. They are looking at different crops, and looking at maybe the regions like the coastal region, they are targeting mainly fish farming, marine culture, and even coconut, which grows along the coast. When you move upwards even towards the Rift Valley region, they are targeting the dairy and also some of the short-term crops that are grown in that region. That's where Atlas has been rolled out. And also lately, there are discussions being spearheaded by Tegemeo Institute to onboard the Atlas into the edible oil value chain. And also they are targeting soya and sunflower value chains. But the main target is on sunflower. But learning case is from soya because a lot of development has been done on soya. Sunflower, which is also a key value chain in the country that is targeting reduction of importation of edible oil into the country, which is a key bottom-up economic transformation agenda being implemented by the government. When you look at what the Atlas can do, one of the things that we are looking at is alignment with multi-level planning instruments. You've heard of CIDPs, County Integrated Development Plans, being rolled out in the different counties. This will assist in aligning, getting data at that level, assist the counties in planning those 5-year term plans. At the same time, looking at also the annual plans, which are more short-term plans that are done annually. Also aligning into the National Agriculture Sector Strategic Plans. We have the countries implementing ASTGS, and that information will assist in informing these national targets, and as well as also looking at cross-sectorial coordination. You realize agriculture is not just standing alone, it is interlinked with other sectors. You find that it is linked to the water, environment, energy, and even finance sectors. So a lot of information from the Atlas will support in linkage between the different sectors. We are also looking at, in terms of the policy that it will support, is local empowerment and stakeholder engagement. As I said, we are implementing the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. So a lot of information collected under the Atlas will support in integrating that local knowledge in the plans the country is implementing, and also ensuring that the agenda inclusive and youth-sensitive adaptation policies put into their plans, and also ensuring participatory workshops are being conducted along these value chains. Also, you realize that Atlas is a very good tool in terms of M&D, where the country is able, the country is able to use the Atlas indicators to track progress of the targets and commitments that have been done, looking at even Vision 2030 that is being implemented in the country. Basically, the information under the Atlas will assist in terms of monitoring what has been achieved so far. Yeah, basically that. And also in terms of even looking at regulatory components, you realize as we are getting into the edible oil value chain, Sometimes we have challenges in terms of even provision of subsidies. Yeah, so we look at information from the Atlas will assist in targeted distribution of even planting materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that we've heard from the government side of, and also from colleagues who've tested it, and in the interest of time, let's open the floor now to take questions.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you to the panelists. I had a question for Bereket from the first panel. I think when he presented, he talked about Ethiopia being able to pull together data from different stakeholders. I think our experience has been that it's very difficult, even among researchers, for people to share data. So I just wanted if he could give us some 2 or 3 key lessons on the success drivers for Ethiopia, what really motivated other institutions to share the data, so that we can learn from it. And then I think the other question goes to Jayden. I hope he's still online. But I think from even what Lily has mentioned lastly, the Atlas, although it's not really one of the key objectives, could be very useful in tracking climate effects after they have happened. So we know that right now, for example, in the Horn of Africa, we have a adverse weather advisory. We don't do it in real time, but by March, we'll be knowing which areas have been affected, the severity of some of the events that have been predicted. So if that is something that can be incorporated into the Atlas in the next version that comes out, maybe you can tell us the feasibility of that as well. Thank you.
A second question over here, and then third, and then fourth at the back. This gentleman here.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator, and thank you very much for the 2 panels. My question will go to Professor Tina. When she was presenting, she focused on the inclusion of women, but also we know that persons with disabilities are among the. I have forgotten to introduce myself. I'm Jean-Pierre Baragahoranye from the National Council of Persons with Disabilities in Rwanda. I would like to come back to the inclusion and how persons with disabilities are mainstreamed in the agricultural sector in those countries from those people who have been presenting in front of us. So my second question is, how do you make accessible your data by everyone if it comes to those persons with visual impairment, and how do they access your data? Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a second hand here, and then just also do an introduction and which organization you're coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, the audience. Quickly, I picked from the information provided by Mr. Logino and later corroborated by the madam from the Ministry of Agri, Kenya. Sorry, is this Kenya? Yeah, Kenya. Still talking about the quality of data that we find in Atlas. The quality of data many times is often determined by the level of understanding and expertise of the data gatherer. If the data gatherer is not so versatile or experienced in a particular area, and he produces some deficient information, as it were, And such information were later used to make policy projections. We all know the implication. What are the attempts that ministries and the Greek experts put in place to minimize the instances of such? Because it's rampant unless we want to claim ignorance. Policy deficient information that are provided on the Atlas platform could be misleading sometimes, especially when after 1 or 2 years they are not updated. They are just hanging there, and some people just go in there, extract those information, and build their own projection based on those deficient information. What are the gadgets, or what are the remedies, towards avoiding such, given the importance and the implication on policy projection? Akoni Kazim is my name, from Nigeria. I'm a professor of agribusiness and agricultural economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. The fourth question, and then we can respond. Frank, the back.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Franklin Drono from Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, RCMRD. And basically, I really, even getting it difficult to ask a question, but to observe what the panelists have talked about, and seeing even from experience that, remember times ago, we used to struggle a lot from the different data formats. Take, for example, even knowing the climate data, the rainfall data from net CDF, we used to use softwares. But now, if you see the Atlas is taking us to the programming side and takes it even further to visualizing it and even having some of the narratives based on the data. So basically what we are looking here is data sets and then deriving insights from the data sets. And the question is, I've heard from different organizations, the data sets are in different formats. The data sets are fragmented. They're in silos. Some don't like sharing the data sets. And a simple question to my sister Lily is, some years back in Kenya, there was an attempt to have a centralized repository, a geoportal in the form of national spatial data infrastructure. So that the aim was almost equivalent to what the Atlas is giving, to have all the data sets into one repository, and therefore to derive insights out of them. So, Lily, I don't know, from your experience, different ministries from the country, different data sets, cross-disciplinary, how really possible that, what can we do? Is maybe in terms of policy, that willingness can be spurred so that we can get data and put in the Atlas and have derive knowledge product, derive insights, and use of the usability of the data being moved. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. We can respond to that. So the first question was addressed to Bereket. If you can just pass the mic to Bereket.
Okay, thank you. We are, the reason why we establish a data partnership is to share data across governmental and climate-related organizations. What we have done is we established a data hub, and we created a pipeline with these organizations. Not fully, but partially. We created a pipeline so that data sharing will be seamless. In addition, the data that is collected might not be qualified. So we have a big task of increasing the quality of the data. We are struggling to improve the quality of the data. It could be incomplete, it could be negative, or it could be like completeness issue also can happen. So what we have done is we do have data analysts. So this data analyst will feed the system by cleaning and making the data standard. In addition to that, the data partnership helps us to create a data governance policy, agreements, conventions on how we exchange data. So the main advantage of this data partnership is increasing the quality of data and the trust, having a remarkable trust issue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Birket. If you can now have the second question, which was addressed on matters inclusion of persons able differently, Professor Tino.
Thank you to my colleague who asked about how the centers, the test cases, took care of including the differently abled people. I must say that the question of gender integration and gender mainstreaming was emphasized, like I said earlier, by the test cases. And the emphasis actually stemmed from the onset when the centers were trained by a gender specialist that SAF-A, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, actually brought on board for all the test cases to be trained on how to integrate gender. So we learned quite a lot, and some of the lessons that we learned were implemented. The low-hanging fruits, which was to integrate women and youth, that was done and it was easy to do. However, I must say that we, as test cases, we have not really gone into making our test cases accessible or usable by people who are differently abled. In the learning workshop on Monday, we shared lessons, we shared our experiences through the test cases, and in that meeting, in the workshop, there was one representative from your organization, a differently abled colleague was there, and he brought some issues to our attention as a team, that it's important for us to take care of the needs of those who are differently abled. So that is something that our test cases are actually educated about, and they will take it up going forward. Thank you so much. And I must say, as I sit down, that gender integration, we learned that it's not just about talking about the number of women that you included or the number of youth that you included in your training and so on. It goes further. It speaks to the roles and responsibilities. It speaks to their inclusion in decision-making processes and in investments and so on. So the same should apply to our colleagues who are differently abled. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tino, for that. So it's still work in progress. We are refining the atlas. And allow me to request Braden to come in to respond to the question on using on tracking climate effect in real time. If you can hear me, Braden.
Yep, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect. Yeah, so about that question, it is something we've talked about as a team, and I think in theory it should be possible. It's not something that we have really kind of looked into too much. At the moment, every kind of data set that's used by the Adaptation Atlas is a static data set, so no real-time updates. If they update, or if the data sets update, we update them manually, and kind of update the paths and everything related to that. So there's no current kind of like real-time data used in the Adaptation Atlas or any sort of kind of real-time API to update that data. In theory, it should absolutely be possible. And it's definitely something we would be happy to look into in the future. I think it's a very good idea and quite a cool cool usage of the notebooks. I think in terms of the current scope of the Atlas and kind of our current plans and updates, it's probably not something that you could expect to see in the next couple of months, of course, as we're kind of updating the current Atlas and the notebooks and the data sets and making them kind of more user-friendly based on the first couple of rounds of feedback. But so long as the need is there and the funding continues, or we continue to have different funding sources and the project continues, we're more than happy to look into new notebook ideas as well as collaborate with people to build these notebooks, or if someone else builds these notebooks, to integrate them into the platform. So I don't want to give any hard yes or no answer of whether or not it would be feasible, because of how we've built the platform. There's a couple nuances in terms of accessing real-time data and kind of doing heavy processing within the notebooks is a little bit more limited compared to a traditional website, but with the
Keke na konoria, lafu tumeseti tuko jaba na mawaria. Yunde manadera, nina chapaneza kalia.
Ai honey, me waka somebody. Leo me ordinary kesho sama bani. Ai honey, please come dine on me. Later siki nice go chilale ndani.
Nina kiss to the city, give me a kiss to your kitty. Kiss to infinity, na die on the pilli. Na sidani na kudai juu ya nyash. Na sidani umeniwai juu ya cash.